Welcome, everyone. You are in for a treat today on the next episode of How Outsourcing and AI Works for Small to Medium Business. As always, high takeaway value, and going to have Ankit Patel on today here, an incredible mastermind when it comes to process systems, engineering, kind of a little bit about his background. And man, when you take that horsepower and you apply it to the whole world of AI and offshoring and outsourcing, been able to see his kind of journey. It's tremendous. Going to get a lot of great insights today, specifically in his business and how they are focusing on supporting the optometry field. As we all know, those that can niche down are going to find the best scale and success. And cool to see he's kind of nailed that particular industry. So thank you, Ankit, for being on, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brad. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So as always, we promise our guests right at the beginning some high takeaway value, right? Going to share a tip, a tech tool, a book or a podcast or something maybe you haven't heard of that can add value to your life. And so guests and myself will kind of share that right here at the beginning so you get a quick win. So Ankit, what do you got to share? I know you're always knee deep in all kinds of stuff like me.
Yeah, there's a lot, but I'll share with a podcast first. It's actually the Jim Rutt podcast. Specifically, there was episode 313. It's
Jim Rutt. How do you spell it?
Oh, JIM RUTT.
All right. So Jim Rutt podcast.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. And episode 313 is about why customer service sucks. And it's actually really good insight in terms of, and folks who are always like pushing AI really hard, especially for AI voice, which we'll talk about a little bit, may not be the best choice. And it kind of talks about why. And I like that approach. It's FYI, it's not, make sure no kids are around because there's some swearing. And it's very brash, but it's a good listen.
All right. And so Jim Rutt podcast, episode 3, which one?
313. I mean, if you like if you like his style, like his podcast, but 313 is the one about the customer service. And one more gem.
Right on.
I'll give one more gem, which is actually called Gems. Gemini, if you have Google Workspace account, you get access to Google Gemini, which is their AI. And since we're talking a little bit about AI, you can create your own gems, which are kind of, if you've heard of ChatGPT agents or things like that, it works pretty well, especially if you have a team that wants to use AI to do tasks repetitively. It's a great way to set it up for your team, especially if you're already in the Google ecosystem.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very near to my heart. We're creating those like crazy. We're a Google Workspace organization, and Custom GPT is their kind of equivalent, doing those custom gems, and they work a little bit differently. But yeah, I've been incredibly impressed with what they've done. And in our business, we create these playbooks for all of our clients of all the work that our VAs are doing for them, and it's in a controlled, protected environment. And so we've been creating a custom gem actually to analyze all the work we're doing and to forecast where we can add more value to our clients. It's been a really cool application of it. We were using custom GPTs before. Awesome. Very good. And so on my end, I will share, I don't believe I shared this one here before, but Business School podcast by Sharon Srivatsa. He actually just came president of acquisition.com with Hermosi. Actually met him in Atlanta here a number of years ago before he moved out west, and just an outstanding podcast. I mean, 20 to 22 minutes. And I mean, it is dead on fantastic business advice and guidance for entrepreneurs and business owners. Highly recommend it. And another one, and some of you may have heard of this one, is look, if you're building your social channels, right, Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and so forth, right, you know how people have calls to action where you can comment and it'll send a book or a resource or what have you. Well, the tool they're using is called ManyChat, ManyChat, ManyChat.com. So if you go to ManyChat.com, you can check it out. You can hook it to your social platforms. And so it's important when you're doing social, like posting some kind of call to action, asking somebody to comment something down below to receive a guide, to receive a resource, right, to get some information to them of value, but that's how you kind of get them into your nurture sequence and content. So ManyChat.com is a great tool to do that. So, all right. Well, as always, got a quick win right at the beginning here from everybody. So go check out those resources. We'll have them in the show notes. So to turn to Ankit, he and I know each other through EO Entrepreneurs Organization. A lot of you heard that as a recurring theme from a lot of guests. It's a testament to the power of this organization going on 15 years, I think, that I've been in. And so he and I are both in the EO Atlanta chapter. He's kind of transitioned to a bridge chapter, I think now, but still in the organization. But just a phenomenal individual, and one that we've constantly always of the same ilk of just innovation and technology and strategy, and he kind of started in the optometry world and then into the outsourcing world. So been kind of cool to see his journey there and support each other in the path. So give everybody a little more insight kind of on your background, and then we'll kind of jump into specific examples, right, of how your clients are using outsourcing and offshoring, right? We're beyond sort of does it exist, but how does this actually work? And folks would love to hear some specific examples.
Yeah, sure. So my background real quick is actually in industrial engineering. I come from manufacturing, large healthcare systems, doing Lean Six Sigma, black belt, all that fun stuff. Married my wife, who's an optometrist actually. And so we bought her a practice and I said, you know what, this is a pretty good business. And so that's how I kind of fell into the business, started growing that. At the time when we decided to outsource, we call it global resourcing because it's not just offshoring. We use remote talent. So we call it global resourcing.
Yeah.
And in about 2019, we had about 4 locations, started centralizing our phone system and centralizing some of our work like insurance authorization, things like that, back office tasks. And we augmented with our back office team, and you got good enough at it to where other people started hiring us, and that's where my business care team was born. And so we officially launched 2 years ago and been growing pretty quick ever since. So it's been a lot of fun. Optometrist, if you don't know, if you've had optometry experience or if you've went to the eye doctor, we do everything from phone answering to there you go. There's our website. Some things around phone answering to filing and billing, authorization of benefits. So there's some interesting back office things that are very optometry specific, like chasing down orders and labs and making sure stuff is filed correctly. We do all that for offices. And there's also traditional virtual assistants as well. So most of our services are what we call shared services or closer to a BPO, if for those of you who might be familiar. But there's also, a virtual assistant model where, hey, you can, if you want just a body that you want to do whatever you want and train them and kind of go through that process, we can provide that. Or if you want us to own the tasks, we can do that. And we'll provide training, we'll provide metrics, we'll provide backups. So you don't have to worry about it. Your calls are going to get answered, right? The phones, we're going to take care of all the technology behind that. Versus if you just have a VA, then you have to provide all that for them.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of a whole turnkey, solution. So it's been, and this is how, the birth of a lot of offshoring, outsourcing, global resourcing. Love that phrasing. Cause when the vocabulary in our industry, it's kind of challenging sometimes because it's got a bunch of different ways that people describe and talk about this whole world. But, a lot of people, it's born out of, they started using it in their own, business and thought it was compelling. And so decided to kind of launch a business, supporting that industry. I've seen it a lot in like insurance, guys, insurance agents and so forth, or in commercial real estate and property management, that kind of thing. So fantastic. Well, oops, sorry, got back there, wrong one. So if you can, Ankit, kind of dive into, and I think it's really cool, a lot of the, you've really brought a lot of AI and automation, right? Because as we know, as this whole world is moving ahead, and and everybody knows kind of our background, Outsource Access. We're in the global resourcing phase as well, and it's even insourcing almost, right? Because when at the end of the day, like you've seen, it's providing full-time, resources that are, working side by side with our clients. We grew to 500 people in about 4.5 years, about 85 different industries. We're looking to zero in. I'm jealous of you guys that have kind of nailed down and found your path into one. We're trying to decide where we're going to focus, longer term, but it's, provided fully integrated support resources, they're integrating into the business, but really help them in that journey too. And I know you guys are good at that. It's like, a lot of people, they want to go down this path, but they got all these doubt, fears, and concerns about what about time zone? What about competency? What are they capable of? And to really, hold their hand and help them in that journey. Everything from getting clarity on where their constraint points are to how to introduce them into the process, how to get the right talent, how to get their hands on the wheel. It's kind of the way I describe it, so that they can then, drive the vehicle in this whole outsourcing, scaling, strategy. And, once you get your head wrapped around it and you understand it and get comfortable with it, it truly does. That's how our tagline at Outsource Access is: redefine how you scale, because it truly does just change the game. So when you think about your clients and specifically in your niche, and look, whether you're in optometry, right? And as, Ankit says, they kind of service, outside of that industry, as well. But anybody that's in a similar type of space, or even in healthcare, or, in a practitioner, a lot of these things could apply to you. So if you don't mind sharing, 2 or 3 just specific examples, and if you can kind of weave in, some of the AI specific tools that you've been, leveraging.
Yeah, I think so. I think about AI in a couple of different buckets. I think about it in terms of what can I do and use and play with, which is a little more advanced, and then what can my team use, and more importantly, what is in production. So it's kind of in those 3 phases. So we have an enormous production bill when it comes to AI. So since we do phone answering, we do like thousands of minutes a day with phones.
Yeah.
And so we have every phone analysis go through AI. So, and there's several analyses that we look at, everything from did they follow the SOP accordingly? And now what was the appointment conversion rate? How, we all call it wow patient experience. Was it a wow phone call? So all these pain points that are hard to track normally, AI is great at that. And so that ends up helping us really well in getting people feedback and training them, really getting up to speed. From my personal use, it's really just, what do I like to do? What's out there? And, what can I play with? And so there's a lot of things I've done and played with. The Claude Code is a great agentic tool, but you got to have to know a little technical side behind it. So, I've done things like create new products using Claude Code as the backend. So we have a researcher that does marketing research for optometry offices, or really anyone that dives in deep. And I combine my expertise with running an office with the data that it comes out with. And we have output funnels, and not only just funnels, it does the research for, hey, this persona, they hang out at this Facebook group locally. They might be a part of this PTA group. And it gets to that level of detail, right? And then we have this output of a funnel that says, okay, this is what their pain points are based off what they say in social media and research. And here's the prompt that you can use to create a gem or a agent out of this. So you can ask it questions and help you create more content with that. And so that's a super helpful workflow that I took from my knowledge, use Claude Code, and then create at a practice level to where anyone can use it, and we implement that for them. That's one example. Sorry, go ahead.
And so you're helping with them identify, and this is helping to identify patients for the practice.
Yeah, so there's a couple. I'll give you an example. There's 2 lines of service for optometrists that are really popular right now that are really good for the business and good for. They're called myopia control and dry eye services. Myopia control is, if you don't know, it's for children, anyone under 18. If your child is, if their prescription is getting worse every year and they're a minus prescription and it keeps getting worse, there's actually options to stop that from getting worse. And so that's called myopia control. Yeah, and it's pretty effective, and it's validated FDA approved treatments. It just requires more skill and time, and not every optometrist does that. But our office does that. So, there are certain personas and avatars that really gravitate towards that. And so we do the research and see, based off the local market, what that persona might be, and then create funnels around that and say, hey, here are the partners that you might want to go talk to, and here's some content you can take to them. Here's some content that you can leave there that'll speak to your ideal target persona. And so it's kind of neat to set up that funnel and that workflow. And then we'll work with their offices to figure out, okay, how does that look when they come in office as well? And so AI has been a real boon in terms of figuring that out, taking our existing knowledge base on how to do that process and the research that needs to happen to get us there.
Got it. So it's helping that office because they got to figure out who they need to target, right, to attract that type of a client. And so it's creating, it's actually creating content that they can use to go after either partners that they should engage with. It could create referral relationships, but then also is it helping to post content and social content in that geo-targeted area to attract that particular type of client?
We offer that as part of our service. That hey, we can do that too.
Okay.
This is just the first phase, the research side. So when we go to implementation, we'll use tools like N8N. Or make.com or whatever makes the most sense for automating those things, the posting and updating and driving that funnel. Many times we find that the most effective strategy, at least for optometrists, is not the social media approach. It's the boots on the ground, going and talking to partner channels. It's going and talking to parents directly, going and talking and speaking in front of groups like the Lions Club. We find that is more effective for doctors in terms of ROI. Not to say you shouldn't do the other stuff, but if you had to pick, usually the boots on the ground is better.
Gotcha.
And that's from the.
That reminds me.
Sorry,
I have to share. There was you and I both know in the chiropractic space in Atlanta here. Actually, a friend of mine that's got a chiropractic office. There's a company that will actually help run seminars. So like they as the professional, they will give you the content and the slides, and they will actually run and drive like patients to your practice for you to speak and educate. And so instead of coming and pitching them to come get a free exam, it's, specific like on pediatric chiropractic. Right. And so like it'll send, and they'll drive. I mean, this woman, she had 15 people in her practice educating, and they drove them all there, did all of it. I mean, I think she converted like 80% of them. So yeah, testament to that.
Yeah, and that's actually it's interesting because that's one of our strategies that's come out of this research process, and it actually creates the content that speaks to that persona. So, for
Hmm.
instance, someone who really there's one persona for myopia control that's very research heavy, so it helped us create a research back that we verified was accurate in terms of like what is myopia control. So we had all these documents that it would help us create. So it becomes much easier to do these things that you may not have a strength in to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
So that's an example of something that I've played with, and it's turned into a product that we can automate with AI. That's the whole life cycle of a product. We use it internally heavily too for automation. So if you've never dealt with billing insurance, it is very difficult sometimes. And so there's a lot of if-then rules, especially in optometry is a little bit unique because you can do medical and vision insurance, and there's rules between both of them, and sometimes there's overlap. And so we use AI tools to help automate a lot of that cognition because we know what
Hmm.
those rules are. And so it helps. It's not, is it 100% every single time? It's close. You still need a human in the loop, but it takes care of most of the decision making for you. And so it does a pretty good job of that. And one way we really like to use it that's been most effective for our internal team is testing. So we use N8N or we use Google Gems to create test. And we have two different versions. We have a static test and we have a dynamic test. The dynamic test, we use N8N to deploy, and it actually goes through and pulls on the SOP. And I'll just show it to you if you like. Let me just show you what this looks like.
Yeah, if you can pull it up, it'd be great.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. So N8N is an automation platform, and this is what this is for our offices. We own a couple of offices. We set up this chatbot where the user can send a message and it goes to the AI agent. It pulls on the SOP, and
So add a
based
stage
off of
there.
there it
Yeah,
goes. It's
let's see
not
here. Oh, there we go.
showing.
All right, I got to
There
add a stage. There we go. Okay, cool.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. So N8N, this is a workflow in the N8N is the name of the company, and it starts off with a trigger and it does some task and then the task finishes. So in this, we have an AI agent that will actually pull in the SOP, which is a standard operating procedure for this client,
Yeah.
and then we're using Gemini Pro on this one to actually run this model and come up with a test. Now, let me show you what this looks like. And I ran a sample so you could see it because it takes a second to pull. It's not super fast, but so you start off with your name and email. It tells you the rubric. It tells you, hey, this is the quiz for Classic Vision Care, which is our office.
Yeah.
And we wanted you to score 90%. And so we have a particular methodology. So it starts off with question one. Patient calls and asks you to accept their specific insurance plan before they're willing to schedule. They sound hesitant. What are other steps and processes you should follow to handle the call, verify the insurance, and secure the appointment, even if you can't fully confirm coverage details immediately? I just said, I'm not sure. And so step one, it says, so we've had people kind of game this. So we actually have an AI detector that's in there. So it says, yeah, you're probably a human. So that's good. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've had people game in. We just put that in there just so they know it's not 100%, but at least it helps. And then we go through, there's a learning technique. This technique is research based. Basically, what it does is it says, if you can tell people two different analogies and they can find the common thread in the analogy, then they can apply that same lesson to the actual question being asked originally. So since most of our people in the Philippines, we use Philippine specific examples. And so they can resonate with them. So a person carefully packing a balikabayan box, I'm not going to say that right, to send to home to their family in the Philippines. That's one scenario, an analogy. And the other one is a family enthusiastically preparing their home and inviting neighbors for the local town fiesta, right? And so what we're asking them is, what is a linkage between the two? And their job is to figure out, well, what's common between these two. And I don't know enough to know exactly what the linkage is, but I would say, like, there are surprises and there's gifts, right? Just put something down, just see what it says. And then says, okay, yeah, you're a human, great. And says the concepts is embedding linkage between the two analogies are where you need to know the answer to properly answer the first question to the original question. So basically it said, like, hey, it's really about how do you deal with difficult pushback and objections. So it's kind of prompted to think of, okay, well, how would you deal with any kind of pushbacks or objections that were around this? How do you deal with this situation that's going on? What's a common thread there? And then it asked the question again. And then it would say, okay, now based off of what you learned here, answer the question again. And I didn't put the full answer here, but I said, reassure them, give them all the information. And it said, yeah, okay, you're probably human, but hey, that's a 0. And this is how you should have answered it. And this is what the connection between the analogies are. So the box represents the value and care that you're packaging with the patient. It's not just an appointment, right? It represents welcoming and inclusive experience. A fiesta is about community celebration. And so, and it says, here's a step-by-step of how you should have answered that question. And so it gives you feedback. And then you go to question 2. And that's a long way of saying that's a dynamic test. So if I nail this question to begin with, it doesn't ask me the analogy. It just goes to the next one. But if I don't understand the concepts, it'll actually come up with a specific concept to get me to prime me to answer the question properly.
Wow. And so so remind everybody, what's the tools that you're using to build this?
It's called N8N, but it's you can simulate this on other chatbots. You could probably simulate this in a gem as well, by the way. There's nothing really that special about it. It's really just so this is a trigger, but really the magic happens here where there's a system prompt and there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. And if you reach out to me, if someone reaches out to me, I'll be happy to share this prompt with folks and how we do the testing. And you can make a custom for wherever you need. And then it just pulls on a model. And then these are just functions for the model. This is memory. This is thinking. This is the SOP. But a Google Gem, if you already have Google Drive, it's in Google Drive, just associate the gem with the file and just put that prompt in and you're good to go. And you can give people this, you can give them this gem and say, hey, here's the gem for client XYZ. Take this test and copy and paste the results. Now, the reason why we do an N8N is because we can do some automation after the fact. So we can actually track their scores, keep them, how they answer each one, what are themes we're seeing. And then eventually we're going to take those inputs and put it back into the future test and test different concepts and make sure they have every concept down. And so that's kind of what we're building out in terms of learning and development. And we've shortened our learning cycle from about 6 months or 3 to 6 months or never down to 2 weeks in terms of the performance. So we used to test like, hey, how good are you at the SOP? And people were scoring like 60%, 40%. And we started testing, and within a week or so, they'd be up to 90% in terms of their SOP. Just because by doing these things. And now appointment making, we just rolled appointment making out. We've already seen a bump of 20% in most of our clients that we've applied it to. So they're going from like 60% conversion of appointments to 80% by doing this skill.
Wow. So this is now you're going to have to definitely have an offline deeper dive into this one too. That's incredible.
Yeah. So adult learning, I think, is one of the secret sauces where AI is really helpful. Not as much children, because I think children have more social emotional components. But I think adult learning is really, if you have the right structure, I think it's fantastic for that.
I can't wait because with us doing custom gems and kind of what we're doing with training and onboarding and education, it'd be great to bring that. So, hopefully all the listeners are seeing this, and if you can see the visuals, you can catch us on the YouTube. If you're just hearing this audio, kind of go check that out. But you'll be able to see, we got up on the screen here. Ankit actually sharing, and I think it'd be fun maybe actually do a couple part series of kind of digging into some of the mechanics of these elements, because that's where people struggle. Is what are the mechanics? And N8N is and I've gone in, ever since you had told me about it, kind of gone in and got some of my team members digging in, but it does take a little, it does take that engineering mindset. I know for you kind of choose on it pretty quickly, but being able to connect the dots. But once you kind of build a cadence and start using it, I can imagine it kind of comes together a bit quicker.
Yeah, I have a really smart engineering student who does all my automations in N8N. I say, hey, I throw him problems and I'm like, hey, figure this out. And he just figures it out. So yeah, if you have the right person, N8N, it's a great tool that you don't have to be a coder. And it's a great way to have production level AI without having coding experience.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing like that. That's, when we talk about one to hear examples of exactly how it works, that couldn't be a better one to kind of see exactly how you can connect the dots at a deeper level. Probably one of the deeper kind of insights that we've gotten of how you really truly bring the AI plus a global resource together, either how to educate them and train them and how to get them to activate to use the tools, because that's really where the future of all this is going, right? It's not necessarily going to just be one or the other, but kind of the blend of the two of them is kind of 1 + 1 = 4 in terms of what the experience is. So. Well, awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. That was a great couple of specific targeted examples everybody can kind of dig into and go down the N8N rabbit hole. You can check it out. We'll put the links to all the resources in the show notes for everybody. And And in the meantime, if you want to kind of learn about, Ankit and what they do for the optometry world, and otherwise, you can go to MyB Cat, MYB as in boy, CAT.com. Check them out. And if you want to learn more about us, go to outsourceaccess.com. And for all the listeners, if you just shoot an email to tools, TOOLS, tools at outsourceaccess.com. We've got a fantastic 2-question exercise to kind of begin this journey. If you're really at the high level kind of beginning, where do I even begin with outsourcing and where are my constraints? It's a 2-question exercise we've used with startups to multi-million-dollar businesses for them to kind of ask and get clarity, where are the constraints in the business, right? I mean, what we talked about today is kind of the nitty gritty of the mechanics. Once you kind of get buy-in, and obviously Ankit and his team are knee deep in it as we are as well. But, if you're out there, whether you're an optometry office or otherwise, it's like, well, where am I actually going to begin with this? And, Ankit's got some great turnkey services that already kind of make sense out of the gates. But a lot of times it's trying to figure out where and how can this apply? Either help me drive revenue, reduce costs, drive profitability, improve cash flow. But it's simply, what are you doing that's not the best use of your time? How many hours are you spending on it? And then, what are you not getting to due to time, money, or knowledge constraints? And you take those 2 questions and send it to your team. It's incredible the impact. So we have a whole kind of a template guide that you can kind of go through with a kind of instructional video. So shoot an email at tools@outsourceaccess.com. And you just put Ankit actually in the subject line. Now we'll know it came from this episode, and we'll send that your way that you can kind of engage into. So, well, thanks for that technical deep dive, man. I appreciate it. And as we close out here, just encourage anybody to go down this path, right? At the end of the day, this is where everything is going. It's not a short-term tip or trick, right? Globalization of work, AI, it's here to stay. You just got to get on the train and just, start dipping your toe in the water and start playing around with it and start building that muscle. And just like anything, right? I mean, it's just becomes a commonplace. Back in the day, well, should we get one of those website things? I hear the website thing is kind of growing, and, now it's kind of the dominant, position. So thanks again, man. Continued success in the journey, and look forward to following up.
Great. Hey, thanks, Brad.
Take care.